our first story, Behind Mansion Walls, a family flushed with success
He was determined to be one of the rising stars in Nashville.
is struck down by tragedy.
It very much was one of the big unsolved mysteries for a long, long time.
And later,
It was like two magnets pulling towards each other, and it seemed like nothing could ever tear them apart.
a lifelong love affair and a deathbed revelation.
I kept asking him, who shot you, Danny? Danny, who shot you?
Danny, who shot you?
I'm Christopher Mason. Love is a many splendored thing. And when you're courted with caviar, Caribbean holidays, and 24-karat gold, that splendor can seem all the more magnificent. But even the wealthy may discover love is a luxury you simply can't afford if you have a bankrupt heart.
In a grand Nashville mansion, a prominent family gathers for the birthday of their cherished son and grandson. But there's a pall over today's party. The birthday boy's mother isn't here.
People disappear all the time, but this one sort of made a lot of waves.
She left on vacation 10 days ago, and no one's heard from her since.
I think the feeling was, from the very beginning, that something bad had happened to Janet.
Nashville in 1996 is a southern city on the rise. Music City, USA is starting to dance to the beat of big business. It's the perfect place for ambitious attorney Perry March and his stunning wife, Janet.
I think Perry was considered a rising star in terms of attorneys. He had several cases that he was highly successful at, and I think he was determined to be one of the rising stars in Nashville.
And they live amongst the stars in affluent Forest Hills, a favorite hideaway for country music singers. The Marches aren't hiding their wealth. They build a 5,000-square-foot mansion.
They built a beautiful dream home that Janet had designed herself.
Janet's artistic flair goes way beyond designing her dream palace. She's also an established artist and illustrator. Janet Levine fell in love with Perry March in college in Michigan. The couple marries and settles back in her hometown in Tennessee.
That's a good thing. No, it's interesting. Makes it
Moving to the Deep South is a move up the social ladder for Chicago-born Perry. He's tapped into one of Nashville's most influential families.
Among the Jewish community here in Nashville, I think they sort of carry a lot of weight.
Janet's father, Larry, is a heavy hitter in the legal fraternity.
He's a prominent attorney and a very well-respected one.
Larry wants his son-in-law to follow in his footsteps, paying Perry's way through a prestigious law school.
He treated Perry as his own son, and he took care of him financially. He helped him go through Vanderbilt Law School, and they were a very close-knit family, and they loved him just like they would their son.
In late August 1996, Janet's parents arrive at the March mansion for their grandson's birthday party. Perry's father, Arthur, has also flown in from Mexico. Someone who hasn't flown in is Janet March. She went to California 10 days ago, but was due back long before this party.
She'd planned this, sent out invitations and everything else. And when she didn't return for that, I think there was great concern at that time.
Missing her son's birthday is totally out of character for this mother of two.
They just said, you know, she's either really had a psychological break because she's not acting anywhere normal like she did when she would leave her children because she cared so much about them.
Exactly 2 weeks after she's last seen, Perry and Janet's parents report her missing to Nashville police. Detectives ask Perry exactly what happened the day Janet left home.
We need some space. We know this is not working.
He admits they were going through a rough patch.
I've got other plans, okay?
Are you going somewhere?
He said there was an argument on the August the 15th, and she just got fed up with him.
Janet decides she needs a break. With her typical attention to detail, she leaves a list of chores for her husband entitled Janet's 12-day vacation.
In fact, I would like you to sign it.
And he was not very good at running errands and paying bills, so she left him a typed out to-do list and said she was going on vacation.
And she just typed up that note and basically said, see ya.
See ya.
She had just up and left, and he didn't know what had happened to her.
Has Janet March simply left her husband? Perhaps she wrote the list of chores to help Perry kickstart his life without her. But that doesn't explain why she hasn't contacted anyone.
She had a very good relationship with the mom, and they would speak every single day.
A week later, investigators catch their first break. Janet's late model sedan is found abandoned at an apartment complex just a few miles from her home.
There were some sandals placed in the car. Her pocketbook was still in the car, which would indicate that she'd been grabbed from the car or abducted in some way, since her purse was still there.
Not only her purse, but her passport and a packed suitcase. Why did Janet park at this apartment building? Was she visiting someone here? Investigators go door to door, but find no links with Janet March.
We had no knowledge that she knew anybody. We never were able to put any contacts with her. There was no reason for her to be there.
Has the former prom queen been abducted and her car abandoned? Or is it something worse? This missing persons case is looking more and more like murder.
I think the strongest possibility was that she's obviously dead, or someone had kidnapped her and was holding her hostage for some unknown reason.
The lack of evidence makes cops wonder if Janet is the victim of a professional hit. As an attorney, Perry often deals with the underbelly of Nashville. Has he crossed a criminal who now wants revenge?
We looked at that angle, the possibility that he had some of these enemies, the possibility that some of those people that he was in business with as their attorney, maybe they were somehow involved in Janet's disappearance.
The Levines are a high-profile family in this city. So Nashville police search around the clock to find their missing daughter. They scour the woods near where her car was found, using cadaver dogs, ground-penetrating radar, and helicopters with heat-seeking equipment. They come up empty-handed. One way or another, Janet March has vanished off the face of the earth.
They just couldn't find her, and that she had just flat disappeared.
Usually, the only thing to stop Music City in its tracks is a rollicking Saturday night performance at the Grand Ole Opry. But in the summer of 1996, the daughter of a powerful Nashville family disappears, and the city is buzzing with questions. Has the high society Southern belle been kidnapped, killed, or did Janet March simply decide not to stand by her man?
As the weeks turn into months since Janet left home, investigators rule out an underworld hit. But they chase down hundreds of other leads.
You get a lot of information, you get a lot of leads that come in. There may be a body here, there may be a body there. She may have been sighted at this location. We even had people calling in saying she was seen alive in this state or seen alive in that state.
Alive or dead, the story of the missing daughter from a prominent Nashville family grips the nation.
There was a lot of heavy media coverage in terms of why would someone like Janet just leave and leave her 2 children behind.
4 years after her disappearance, A Tennessee court declares Janet March legally dead. The mystery is shelved for another 2 years. Until Pat Postiglione from Nashville's cold case unit picks up the file.
Motto of a cold case unit nationwide is, never give up, and that's certainly the case here.
As they sift through the evidence, Sergeant Postiglione and his team find a lot of unresolved questions.
I made a list of chores for you.
Like the note Janet wrote to Perry the day she left. To her parents, Larry and Carolyn Levine, that list just doesn't look right.
When Janet typed, she didn't use capital letters to start sentences, and this note had capital letters.
Written different, it wasn't her style, according to friends and family.
So who typed the list? And when? Police will never know. When they searched the March mansion after Janet went missing, the computer had been sabotaged.
The only item that was missing was a hard drive out of that very same computer that the note allegedly was written on.
What detectives didn't find in Janet's car is also puzzling. There was her passport and purse, but no toothbrush, deodorant, or underwear for her trip away. To her mother, Carolyn, it looks like a bag a man would pack. Perry might be able to shed some light on it, but he's not here. The grieving husband has moved to Mexico with their 2 children.
He's out of the country, so he's impossible to reach. He's impossible to communicate with in terms of any questions we may have regarding Janet.
Perry's not talking to cops, but others in Nashville's well-to-do circles are. They say the society couple's marriage was fractured.
This is horrible.
We agreed that I would be able to spend some time doing this.
And at what point are you going to realize it is a waste of time?
It sounds as if they, sort of had a stormy relationship, sort of from the get-go.
You okay?
No.
By the summer of 1996,
Always waiting for you.
the cracks in their relationship were growing too big to fix. Janet had started planning a divorce.
I've got other plans, okay?
Well, what are the plans? Are you going somewhere?
She was supposed to meet with the divorce attorney actually the very next day, August 16th, 1996.
The day after his wife disappeared. Then, a check of Perry's past employers unearths a scandalous secret. Back in 1991, the prosperous attorney was fired from his law firm for sending sexually explicit notes to an attractive intern.
They caught Perry actually doing it, so he agreed for some sort of money compensation, possibly $30,000.
Perry never told his wife why he left his previous job. But cops believe Janet discovered the steamy letters.
I cannot believe that you kept this from me all this time. I knew it. I knew it.
And on August 15th, 1996, she confronts her husband about his shameful secret.
I think she confronted him with that on the 15th. Of course, she was going to see her attorney on the 16th.
Was the couple's argument that night more violent than Perry claimed? That still doesn't explain why Janet's car was left abandoned miles from their home. Until a witness comes forward, telling police he saw a man near Janet's abandoned car the night she disappeared. He was pushing a bicycle through the apartment parking lot.
Perry March was an avid bike rider. So he would have a mountain bike, and that's the type of bike that was being pushed through the parking lot.
The witness later identifies the man from a press photo as Perry March.
That was an extraordinary break in the case when this person came forward.
In December 2004, Perry March is indicted for second-degree murder. But without a body and the smoking gun of hard forensic evidence, detectives are running on gut instinct.
It was a purely circumstantial case.
First, they have to get him out of Mexico. It takes another 8 months. But Perry March is finally extradited back to the U.S. on an unrelated charge.
and there were some problems with his visa. So at that time, the FBI was able to hire some people who just grabbed Perry off the street.
March is locked up in a Nashville cell to await trial, where he makes friends with a resident convict. And when he asks his fellow prisoner a favor, it blows the investigation wide open.
I'll give you their home address.
Behind prison walls in Nashville, two inmates are hatching a plan. Well-to-do attorney Perry March has been arrested for murdering his wife Janet. As he awaits trial from behind bars, Perry makes a deal with a fellow prisoner.
I'm gonna give you their home address.
Perry will post the inmate's $300,000 bond. In return, Perry wants a small favor.
Perry actually tried to recruit him to kill his in-laws.
He's wanting me to get out and kill the Levines.
The Levines had always treated Perry like a son. Now he's planning to sacrifice them both to save his own skin.
In Perry's mind, he felt if his in-laws were killed, they would increase his chances of being acquitted at the murder trial.
But Perry's picked the wrong guy. This con has already snitched to the cops. And now he's wearing a wire and recording every word of their deal.
We got a lot of very damning tapes on Mr. March giving exact instructions on how to kill the Levines, where they lived.
Why would somebody who didn't kill his wife, why in the world would he want to kill their parents? So you would have that additional evidence on top of what we already had. So in my mind, that sealed the deal right there.
The snitch also allows detectives to record his phone calls. And they reveal another player in this murder plot. Perry's father, Arthur March, living down in Mexico.
Hello? Is this Colonel? Yes, you just tell me what you want, how you want it done, and it'll get done.
He told him about how to get a gun and that he would be welcome there. And as soon as he killed him, he could come down and stay with him, and painted what a great life he had in Mexico.
But Arthur and Perry March are about to be outconned. The informant calls Arthur to say he's murdered the Levines and is winging his way to Mexico. Except he's not on the flight.
Sure enough, Arthur went to the airport to pick him up, and we had the FBI at the airport waiting for Arthur.
The retired Army colonel knows the game is up. In return for a reduced sentence, Arthur March agrees to testify against his son. In August 2006, almost a decade to the day since she disappeared, Perry goes on trial for his wife Janet's murder.
You know, people all over the country were either watching it on the internet or it was done live here.
In video testimony, his father reveals what really took place on August 15th, 1996.
You have been keeping this from me all this time. I knew that there was a reason that you left there. I knew that there was a reason you didn't tell me. You are a liar.
Janet confronts her husband about the sexual harassment case and their crumbling marriage.
You are a joke. I am a joke. You are a joke. This is an embarrassment to the family.
Well, Arthur said that Perry told him that he and Janet got into an argument.
It's look at me when I'm talking to you. Look at me when I'm talking to you. You can't even look at me, can you?
And then he picked up a wrench.
You are an absolute animal. I cannot believe that you have done this.
And killed her.
Perry hurriedly cleans up the murder scene. He wraps his wife's body in a trash bag and buries it in a nearby vacant lot. The attorney then goes about setting up his alibi, packing a suitcase for his wife's vacation. He even types up Janet's supposed list of chores. Perry abandons her car at the apartment building to make it look like an attempted abduction, then cycles home.
He felt the best way out was to kill Janet and come up with this elaborate scheme about her leaving.
A few days later, Perry calls his father in Mexico with a problem. The problem is the spot he buried his wife's body. It's about to become a construction site, and he's worried Janet will be unearthed. He needs his father's help to move the body. Arthur agrees to help.
They found the body based on Perry's instructions. He took the body down, they put it in the trunk of their Volvo. They drove up to Kentucky.
Arthur reburies Janet's body 60 miles away in a brush pile.
Arthur gave us all the information. He even took us up to areas in Kentucky and tried to show us the best he could to where he thought he put Janet's body.
But a decade later, Arthur can't remember exactly where he buried the body. And police never find Janet March. For 10 years, Perry March thought he'd gotten away with murder. In the end, his own father betrayed him.
Having Arthur March testify, via tape against Perry may not have been the death knell, but it certainly didn't help. And I think that was a major, major win for the prosecution.
On September 6th, 2006, Perry March is found guilty of second-degree murder. And later, sentenced to 56 years in prison. He's also convicted of conspiring to kill Janet's parents.
He never showed any emotion, but we didn't really expect him to. I've never actually seen him show any real emotion, ever.
Perry has never admitted exactly what happened to Janet that night, even for the sake of his children.
Their mom is gone. They never had the opportunity to say goodbye. Her body has never been recovered. Perry has never told them the truth and will never tell them the truth, so they're kind of left hanging out there. He's just a number in the Tennessee Department of Corrections system where he'll be for the next 56 years, and we're perfectly fine with that.
If he hadn't hatched the plan to kill his wife's parents, Perry March might still be sipping margaritas in Mexico. But a bankrupt heart is a barren place. Poets have compared marriage to a garden. It needs constant tending, or pernicious weeds can take hold, and something darker and more sinister blooms.
When you've made it big in Texas, you drive a big car, boast an extensive gun collection, and live in a home of Ben-Hur proportions. You also expect a garden fit for a king. For Danny and Charlene Hill, trimming the hedges of Houston's high-class homes has turned their gardening business into a veritable money tree.
Their landscaping business was very successful. In fact, they were bringing in millions.
But it wasn't always this easy.
Charlene and Danny did not have a lot when they first got married, but they were both determined and hard workers. And before you knew it, they were building up a fortune.
By the early 2000s, the Hills have left Struggle Street for a mansion on the boulevards of upscale Pecan Grove.
They lived in a nice part of town. They drove nice cars. They had nice furniture.
That's it, Jenny. Come on.
And very nice guns. Danny Hill spends much of his hard-earned wealth on weapons.
Danny was very keen on hunting. There wasn't much that could turn his head any quicker than a new hunting rifle.
The only other thing that can turn Danny's head is his wife, Charlene.
When Danny and Charlene first met, it was like two magnets pulling towards each other, and it seemed like nothing could ever tear them apart.
20 years working hand in hand to build their landscape and storage empire has forged seemingly unbreakable bonds.
They worked very hard and loved each other dearly. They'd accumulated a lot of assets and cash. She had 3 lovely children, a beautiful home. What more could she possibly want?
Just one thing. In 2006, after their 25th wedding anniversary, Charlene and Danny make plans to retire to a ranch in the Texas Hill Country. But their dreams disappear in a heartbeat on the night of November 14th.
911 call came in. There was a shooting at a residence in the Congrove subdivision.
The caller is a woman, and she sounds distraught. Fort Bend County Sheriff's Deputy Jose Trevino races to the Hills Pecan Grove mansion.
I was the second unit to arrive on the scene.
Trevino heads upstairs to the master bedroom to find Danny Hill lying in a pool of blood.
You could tell he was in pain. He had blood in his shirt. I couldn't see where he was shot, just in the stomach area.
Danny has been shot 3 times. As emergency crews battle to save his life, Danny is still conscious. Deputy Trevino makes a split-second decision.
And I asked him several times, "Who shot you, Danny?"
Danny, who shot you?
Behind his oxygen mask, the dying man struggles to talk.
Get that mask off, please, ma'am. I need to talk to you. Danny, who shot you? Danny, who shot you? Who shot you? Who shot you?
A multi-millionaire gardener is not something you encounter every day. Texan tree trimmer Danny Hill has been prospering mightily with his own version of a hedge fund. But 3 bullets have put an end to all that. As his life ebbs away, Danny is desperately trying to tell cops who shot him. Should be an open and shut case. Except in Texas, everything is usually bigger, including the truth.
Please, please, please.
In the Pecan Grove mansion, paramedics are losing the battle to save Danny's life.
EMS was already on location as well. They were working on Danny inside the bedroom. They had an oxygen mask on him. As I was going into the residence, I activated my recorder. It was an audio cassette recorder.
As police standard procedure, the Fort Bend County deputy records the scene.
Danny, who shot you? Danny, who shot you?
And Danny Hill identified his shooter that night there in the bedroom where he was shot, and it was captured on tape.
Who shot you? Who shot you?
I kept asking him, "Who shot you, Danny?" "Danny, who shot you?"
Danny, who shot you?
So I asked EMS to remove the mask.
Take it off. Who shot you? Who shot you? Who shot you? Who shot you, Danny? Danny, who shot you?
Danny's reply is barely a whisper.
My wife.
And I asked him again. I said, "Danny, your wife shot you?" And he nodded yes.
Danny, your wife shot you.
A few hours later, Danny is dead. His last words are a damning indictment. Charlene Hill is arrested and charged with murder. But why would a loving wife of 25 years gun down her husband?
She was crying. She was upset. She was shaking.
A distraught Charlene tells detectives she had no choice. Danny was about to attack her.
She claimed it was self-defense. She said she was afraid for her life. She thought he was going to kill her.
Seems the Hills' fairy tale marriage was not so sturdy. More like a rotten door waiting to be kicked in.
From the outside, everyone thought that they had a good marriage. But Charlene and Danny were hiding some dark secrets.
You don't know how to do it. That's the problem. You don't know how to do it.
Local folk know Danny has a mean streak a mile wide. As his marriage went on, it just got wider.
That's when he started using his physical power and his emotional power over his wife to turn her life into a total misery.
Tuck it into your shoulder.
Stop interrupting. Look, I'm doing it.
It was fight all the time. It's the Hatfields and the McCoys in their house.
You want to know what to do? You think this is a game? You think this is a toy?
The petite mother of three is no match for her 6'3" husband. Charlene says she's endured years of mental and physical abuse.
She would run into the bathroom and lock the door, and he would come in there and rape her. And he was telling one friend that he thought she liked it.
Despite a litany of 911 calls and hospital visits over the years, Charlene refuses to press charges.
Like many battered women, she was told that if she left, he would kill her. He would find her and he would kill her. And she believed he could do it.
Don't do this. Stop it. Get out.
When Charlene threatens to leave, Danny takes his reign of terror to a whole new level.
Her worst experience was the day he tied her to a chair.
Danny, what are you doing? Stop it.
And poured lighter fluid all over her body.
I'm gonna teach you a lesson.
God, what are you doing? No, please, stop.
He stood there with a lighter, taunting her, telling her, if you ever leave me, I will kill you and I will kill your children. He left her sitting in that chair all night long.
The way Charlene tells it, the night of November 14th, 2006, starts with a call from Danny's brother.
And so the brother called Charlene and said, you know, I just want to warn you, Daddy's on his way home and he's in a rage.
Charlene said, I know exactly how to handle this situation. I will calm him down with his favorite meal. So she prepared chicken and dumplings.
I swear to God, I will shoot him. It's my storage unit.
But when Danny got home, there was no calming him down. He was beside himself.
They began to argue. The argument kind of moved around the house a little bit and ended up in the bedroom.
I made them smash before you could at least.
Will you shut up?
Danny's rage reaches boiling point, and Charlene knows what he's capable of.
Had you had everyone up to here. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you.
She did the only thing that came to mind. She pulled out a Glock and laid it on the bed. She said, just stay away from me. Don't make me use this.
Don't make me use this.
We're gonna have a shootout now. Is that it?
Even without a gun, she thinks Danny is a lethal weapon.
According to Charlene, that's when he started moving towards her. He was the biggest, he was the baddest. He figured at any shootout he'd win. He didn't count on Charlene firing first.
Charlene called 911 and stated that she'd shot her husband.
The police analyzed the case at first, and to them it seemed obvious. This was a battered woman who had been controlled, abused, belittled, and knocked around for quite some time. It seemed to them that there was no question about it. It looked like self-defense.
A clear-cut case of justifiable homicide, Texas style. That is, until Charlene's children come forward with a very different story.
Charlene's children turned on her.
Danny and Charlene Hill had been in a serious motorcycle crash 3 years earlier. Their children say that crash turned Danny's life around.
During that motorcycle accident, Danny's personality had changed. He had a traumatic brain injury. Due to that injury, his violence had basically evaporated. It wasn't there anymore.
Danny was no longer a violent man.
He transformed since the accident. He turned into a big pussycat. He was just a wonderful guy. He'd calmed all down.
While Danny became a pussycat, the kids say their mom turned into a tigress.
I wouldn't trust you around any guns. You probably shoot your foot.
After enduring years of torment,
Oh, okay.
Charlene became the tormentor.
You're such a loser. I've had it with you.
Charlene was just nasty to Danny, that she was always egging him on, trying to stir up his anger, as if she wanted to make him go over the edge.
Investigators wonder if Charlene's claim of self-defense is all a lie.
My impression of Charlene Hill is that she wasn't truthful, that she was trying to get out of trouble by saying things that didn't happen and making Danny out to be a person that night that he wasn't.
Fort Bend County folk await a courtroom showdown as a mother and her children prepare to go head-to-head, and the verdict will shock them all. In the fall of 2009, Charlene Hill is on trial for the murder of her multimillionaire husband, Danny, 3 years earlier. Charlene claims she killed Danny in self-defense, but 2 of her children testify against their mother in court.
They took the stand in the courtroom and pointed their fingers in her direction.
They claim Charlene was the aggressor that night.
I wouldn't trust you around any guns. You probably shoot your foot.
To get up in front of the world and testify that she was an awful human being who shot this man on purpose. It had to have been a devastating blow to Charlene.
Fort Bend County Assistant District Attorneys Chad Bridges and Jill Stotts build their case against Charlene Hill. They argue she planned to kill her husband that night in 2006. For starters, she'd recently bought the murder weapon.
Charlene had purchased the handgun a month before the murder.
The prosecution believes Danny's death wasn't triggered by abuse, but by greed. When she bought the gun, Charlene transferred a big chunk of cash into her own coffers.
She moved $1 million out of a joint account and into her personal account.
But in the end, prosecutors say it's the bullets that mattered. Forensic testing shatters Charlene's story of self-defense.
She stated that Danny was coming at her when she shot him. The forensics showed that that couldn't have been the case.
They don't indicate that he was coming straight at her. They indicate he was walking away.
The first 2 shots sever Danny's spinal cord, paralyzing him. He's not going anywhere, and Charlene shoots him a 3rd time.
God, no! No!
And they said the way it entered the body was indicative of the fact that he was down on the ground and Charlene stood over top of him and fired.
There are multiple entry and exit wounds on Danny Hill's body, but there were 3 gunshots that passed through him. and the third shot made it murder.
But is it enough to convince a jury? After deliberating for 2 days, the jury is deadlocked, 11-1.
I'm gonna teach you a lesson.
A lone juror can't get past Danny's history of domestic abuse.
They said they were not going to be able to reach a decision. Finally, the judge declared a mistrial.
2 years later, in 2011, Charlene Hill is tried a second time.
But the jury was out for a couple of days and still no decision. The prosecutors were worried it was going to end in a mistrial again.
So the prosecutors offer Charlene a remarkable deal. If she pleads guilty to murder, she'll get a 10-year deferred sentence, probation, and a fine. But she won't have to spend a day in prison.
We did that because we believed that was the appropriate sentence for her. Given her history, the fact that Danny probably had been abusive towards her in the past.
It was a difficult decision for Charlene, but her freedom was in the balance, and she did it.
Just as the deal is struck, word comes back from the jury. They've reached a verdict.
And the judge had a choice to make. Did he let them come into the courtroom and deliver their verdict, or did he just accept the deal? He went with the deal.
The jury had found her guilty.
And Charlene, by the breadth of a hair, escaped conviction and prison time.
The guilty verdict would have meant a mandatory jail term. Charlene Hill has just escaped anything from 5 years to life behind bars.
And she was free to lead her life on the outside.
There's one catch. Charlene must admit to murder.
She had to get up in front of the judge and admit that this was not self-defense, in addition to pleading guilty.
Fort Bend County locals like Bev Carter believe Texas justice has been served.
To be real honest, probably it was a fair result because she should have killed him 20 years ago. She should have hit him on the head with a skillet.
There is no perfect solution to these cases. There is nothing that can bring those kids' father back. There is nothing that can undo all the history that had occurred up to that night, the good, the bad, or any of it. But we did the best we could to come to a just conclusion.
Charlene Hill might now be free to enjoy her husband's multi-million-dollar estate. But if she ever claims self-defense, she could find herself behind bars for the rest of her life. With hearts devoid of love and eyes keenly focused on the money, these killers viewed their loved ones as liabilities. Perry March murdered his wife to maintain his place in polite Southern society. And Charlene Hill thought a shootout would solve her marital woes. Till death us do part takes on a whole new meaning for a lover with a bankrupt heart. Till next we meet behind mansion walls, I'm Christopher Mason.